Well, according to the Center for the Blue Economy, it is the overall contribution of the oceans to economies, the need to address the environmental and ecological sustainability of the oceans, and the ocean economy as a growth opportunity for both developed and developing countries. So, what does this mean exactly? Renewable energy, where sustainable practices can have a vital impact on socio-economic development. Fisheries that already contribute over $270 billion annually to the global GDP. Maritime transport, where over 80% of goods traded pass through this channel, and it's expected to double by 2030 and quadruple by 2050. Waste management, because 80% litter comes from land-based sources, and blue economy best practices would help the ocean recover. Climate change. The ocean acts as a major carbon sink and also produces 50% of the oxygen we breathe. Best practices would help mitigate the adverse effects of global warming. And tourism. Coastal towns are a dream destination for many and would bring economic growth and development. Small developing towns and islands bring an estimated 41 million visitors a year. The bottom line is, the blue economy supports the growth of the maritime sector in a sustainable way. What is a blue economy? Well, according to the Center for the Blue Economy, it is the overall contribution of the oceans to economies, the need to address the environmental and ecological sustainability of the oceans, and the ocean economy as a growth opportunity for both developed and developing countries. So, what does this mean exactly? Renewable energy, where sustainable practices can have a vital impact on socio-economic development. Fisheries that already contribute over $270 billion annually to the global GDP. Maritime transport, where over 80% of goods traded pass through this channel, and it's expected to double by 2030 and quadruple by 2050. Waste management, because 80% litter comes from land-based sources, and blue economy best practices would help the ocean recover. Climate change. The ocean acts as a major carbon sink and also produces 50% of the oxygen we breathe. Best practices would help mitigate the adverse effects of global warming. And tourism. Coastal towns are a dream destination for many and would bring economic growth and development. Small developing towns and islands bring an estimated 41 million visitors a year. The bottom line is, the blue economy supports the growth of the maritime sector in a sustainable way. What is a blue economy? Well, according to the Center for the Blue Economy, it is the overall contribution of the oceans to economies, the need to address the environmental and ecological sustainability of the oceans, and the ocean economy as a growth opportunity for both developed and developing countries. So, what does this mean exactly? Renewable energy, where sustainable practices can have a vital impact on socio-economic development. Fisheries that already contribute over $270 billion annually to the global GDP. Maritime transport, where over 80% of goods traded pass through this channel, and it's expected to double by 2030 and quadruple by 2050. Waste management, because 80% litter comes from land-based sources, and blue economy best practices would help the ocean recover. Climate change. The ocean acts as a major carbon sink and also produces 50% of the oxygen we breathe. Best practices would help mitigate the adverse effects of global warming. And tourism. Coastal towns are a dream destination for many and would bring economic growth and development. Small developing towns and islands bring an estimated 41 million visitors a year. The bottom line is, the blue economy supports the growth of the maritime sector in a sustainable way. What is a blue economy? Well, according to the Center for the Blue Economy, it is the overall contribution of the oceans to economies, the need to address the environmental and ecological sustainability of the oceans, and the ocean economy as a growth opportunity for both developed and developing countries. So, what does this mean exactly? Renewable energy, where sustainable practices can have a vital impact on socio-economic development. Fisheries that already contribute over $270 billion annually to the global GDP. Maritime transport, where over 80% of goods traded pass through this channel, and it's expected to double by 2030 and quadruple by 2050. Waste management, because 80% litter comes from land-based sources, and blue economy best practices would help the ocean recover. Climate change. The ocean acts as a major carbon sink and also produces 50% of the oxygen we breathe. Best practices would help mitigate the adverse effects of global warming. And tourism. Coastal towns are a dream destination for many and would bring economic growth and development. Small developing towns and islands bring an estimated 41 million visitors a year. The bottom line is, the blue economy supports the growth of the maritime sector in a sustainable way. What is a blue economy?
Everyone, I am Marie-Louise Felix, lecturer in environmental science at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. I wish to welcome those of you physically present here today at the Finance Administrative Center and those of us joining via Zoom and the Governmental St. Lucia and Sir Arthur Lewis Community College Facebook and YouTube pages. I also want to specially welcome Your Excellency Dame Paulette Louisi, Chair of the National Nobel Laureate Festival Committee, and members of the committee, members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Mr. John Carrick, Chairman of the Board of Governors of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, and members of the board, panelists, principal, management, and staff of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Students, I hope you're all listening. Specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, and all others who may be joining us. This evening's virtual academic discourse marks the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College's kick-off of the 2021 Nobel Laureate Festival. This is the first in the series of discourses for 2021. And our topic this evening is Sustainable Business, Prospects for the Blue Economy in St. Lucia. Now, whilst I did welcome our panelists, I'm now going to take the opportunity to introduce you to the panelists. We are going to start with the gentleman closest to me, and we have Mr. Cuthbert Didier. He is a tourism, maritime, and financial analyst expert. We have Mr. Jade Hutchinson, Chief Executive Officer of Guru Inc. Next to him, we have Ms. Laura Japier, Managing Director, Invictus Inc. In the far table, we have Mr. Brent Theophil, National Technical Specialist, Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, and then one of our lecturers, Mr. Brent St. Catherine. He is head of the Gateways to Global Careers Program and Innovation Lab. So for the next couple of hours, we are going to be engaging in what we hope to be a very lively discourse on a topic that is emerging and promises to be extremely important to the sustainable development of most regions and especially St. Lucia. In order to ensure that we are all on the same page when we speak about the blue economy, we are going to take a couple of minutes to enjoy a short film on the blue economy.
Kenya, in collaboration with Canada and Japan, is hosting the first ever Sustainable Blue Economy Conference from the 26th to the 28th of November 2018 in Nairobi, Kenya at the KICC. But what is a blue economy? Well, according to the Center for the Blue Economy, it is the overall contribution of the oceans to economies, the need to address the environmental and ecological sustainability of the oceans, and the ocean economy as a growth opportunity for both developed and developing countries. So what does this mean exactly? Renewable energy, where sustainable practices can have a vital impact on socio-economic development. Fisheries that already contribute over $270 billion annually to the global GDP. Maritime transport, where over 80% of goods traded pass through this channel, and it's expected to double by 2030, and quadruple by 2050. Waste management, because 80% litter comes from land-based sources and blue economy best practices would help the ocean recover. Climate change, the ocean acts as a major carbon sink and also produces 50% of the oxygen we breathe. Best practices would help mitigate the adverse effects of global warming. And tourism. Coastal towns are a dream destination for many and would bring economic growth and development. Small developing towns and islands bring an estimated 41 million visitors a year. The bottom line is, the blue economy supports the growth of the maritime sector in a sustainable way. This year's conference theme is the blue economy and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The blue economy as a standalone entity is estimated to be the 7th largest economy behind the UK and before Brazil. The conference aims to identify how to harness the potential of the blue economy to create jobs and combat poverty and hunger, show how economic development and healthy waters can go hand in hand, capture commitments and practical actions that can be taken today, and bring together the players needed to transition into a blue economy. If the conference efforts are implemented, it will help shape the transition to the blue economy, hear about the latest innovations in science and technology to ignite blue growth, create new partnerships and projects that transcend boundaries, learn about success stories and concrete actions for driving sustainable blue economies while addressing the challenges of protecting our waters. It will share strategies for transitioning to a blue economy in your country or region and be mobilized for change. That is your crash course on the blue economy. Follow the Blue Economy Conference on CGT and Africa's website, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube.
Yes, I hope you found this video very informative. I do wish to make a small apology here in that we actually have 6 panelists, and there is one who is joining us virtually, and therefore I want to deeply apologize because I was looking at those in front of me. So Ms. Vetta Wade, who is the founder and director of Fish and Fins, she is going to be one of our presenters, and I deeply apologize for having forgotten her in the beginning. So Vetta, I'm very, very sorry. So we are going to have 6 panelists, and how we are going to operate is that each panelist has been invited to speak for about 3 minutes on the work that they do in their particular field. And we are going to hold all questions and discussion after the 6th panelist has completed his presentation. So the first panelist today is Mr. Cuthbert Didier, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mr. Didier. He has been at the forefront of the yachting industry in St. Lucia and the Eastern Caribbean for more than 30 years, with experience spanning marina operations, yachting regattas, and business management. His career in the industry began in the late 1980s. He has served as general manager of the Rodney Bay Marina for 15 years, through to its maturity and handover to the Island Global Yachting IGY Group in 2007. Following this, he took on the task of leading community and government relations in the Southern Caribbean for IGY, before serving as maritime advisor to St. Lucia's Ministry of Tourism until 2017. Cuthbert's work has contributed to several publications and impacted the development of a number of strategic policies at the national and regional levels, including the framework and policy for the Caribbean Marine Association. A veteran in the organization of mass entertainment, Cuthbert has been associated with the production of events, including Mercury Beach, Atlantic Rally for Cruisers, the St. Lucia Jazz Festival, and Blackheart Football Competition. He prides himself on being a DJ and is part owner of the One Drop Sound System. I thought that it was important that we show that he's not all business. So Cuthbert is an avid writer and commentator on matters of social significance. So Cuthbert, welcome, and please join us at the podium to share a little bit about your expertise.
One, two, 1, 2. Okay. Madam Moderator, I'm going to break protocol for 3 minutes, if that's okay with you. All right, thanks. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for inviting me to be part of this very distinguished panel. Today we're discussing the blue economy relative to what I do. And I'm going to start off by saying I find it funny when people speak about the blue economy now, because really and truly we all ended up here through the blue economy, which started in 1492. Having said so, how do we go for it? Yeah. So, the work that I do with regards to the blue economy really focuses on advocacy and facilitation. From way back as 1986 up to now, advocacy and lobbying has been the main focus and drive in developing and strengthening the yachting industry, especially when dealing with government agencies. Dealing with SALCC in the sense of demarcation, facilitation, policy development for yachting, SMMA. Very interesting connectivity. A lot of us in the Caribbean don't understand the value of this ocean and Caribbean Sea. Many islands but one sea, and the connectivity, we saw that during COVID, we saw that at the challenges of moving people, LIAT, flights grounded, that all of a sudden water ferries and the connection between Martinique and St. Lucia was the only viable option. But one of the key things for me in this blue economy has been strategic collaboration. If it's one thing that COVID, or this pre and post-COVID, is showing us, that we need to start developing strategic alliances with key partners. And when I speak of strategic alliance, I want to, in this brief presentation, really suggest and focus on the Taiwanese strategic alliance. Many of you may not know that Taiwan is the 3rd biggest boat builder in the world. They have a strong presence in St. Lucia, even have, I think, an embassy here. But our engagement with Taiwan has been limited to grant funding and community-based development. You can well imagine that the 3rd biggest boat builder in the world, but they are not a recognized international state. They cannot flag the vessels that they build. So if you want to talk about something that's a low-hanging fruit and vibrant within the blue economy, this is a very serious option that's staring us in the face. And just a little antidote, in 2014, the then government of St. Lucia paid a visit to Taiwan. We're now in 2021, and we have not moved a step closer to realizing this dream. But there are some serious challenges within the blue economy. One is that to date, within the halls of power, there's no ownership. There's no ownership for the blue economy. And it's not factored in our development. We talk about Queen's Chain, we talk about SMMA, and we don't even celebrate SMMA, Supreme Marine Management Area, one of the biggest success stories in this part of the region and studied by most first world nations. So that's a very telling aspect for me. And again, I go back to the Taiwanese Strategic Alliance. We went to Taiwan, we engaged them, an MOU was signed, and 7 years later, no traction. So It speaks of whether and truly the concept, those in power understand and grasp that concept of the blue economy. But again, it stems from a lack of ownership or no champion within the halls of government, especially cabinet. This was a very strong question in the questionnaires that was sent to me when presenting this short presentation. One thing that can be done to improve the blue economy. This has been going around for ages. I remember the first time I saw this drawing, I must have been in the final, probably my first year at St. Mary's College, and that's a long time. When you look at this drawing, you see, some people see one face, either a young one or an old one. And some, if they look carefully, will see two faces. So the one thing that can be done to improve the blue economy, we need a paradigm shift. We need, collectively as a nation, to engage in a paradigm shift and infuse the topics specific to maritime in our curriculum. We need to start with the schools, whether it's early childhood stimulation, 0 to 5, infant schools, secondary schools, A-level, and continue. And I dare say we need to have the blue economy held up in a department. I'm not suggesting the Ministry of Blue Economy, but we have fisheries, we have sustainable development. The blue economy needs a place. It needs to sit somewhere, and not just as a department and you have supervisors, but an engaging department that's connected to the rest of our government apparatus. It's very, very, very important. To me, that's the first step. The paradigm shift, getting people to realize that you live on an island surrounded by sea. And that sea holds plenty opportunities. And unfortunately, we're only recognizing some of these opportunities through this crisis, if you want to call it. I want to end with a very interesting quote. The subsistence level is only a conventional idea, and conventions change. We need to start looking at this ocean and stop thinking of it as just an access point for fishermen and transportation. It is the future. It is the future when it comes to energy. It is the future when it comes to survival of mankind, because if our oceans and seas are not healthy, we will be in trouble. And we see that through climate change, we see that through serious erosion. As I speak, there are islands in the Pacific Ocean that are under threat, and under threat from erosions from this very aspect. But we are creating these issues. So I welcome this discussion, and I want to say that it's again, to me, we've been engaging, and we got here through a yacht that sailed across the Atlantic, 1492. It was the beginning of a lot of things, and we've come full circle. So the blue economy is real, it's engaging, but it's up to us as a nation to have the will to create that paradigm shift so that we can move forward and really be players in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Didier. A number of thought-provoking statements, the paradigm shift, no ownership of the blue economy. It's something that we are going to have to come across again and discuss. Our next speaker is Mr. Brent St. Catherine. He holds an MBA in International Business Management from the Mona School of Business, a division of the University of the West Indies, Mona Campus, Jamaica. Mr. St. Catherine has transitioned from the private sector, in which he was general manager for a few private companies, to the classroom. He is a seasoned lecturer, having lectured undergraduate courses for numerous institutions such as the Monroe College, the Australian Institute of Business, and the London School of marketing. His repertoire of courses taught includes entrepreneurship, business planning, strategic management, international marketing, business ethics, organizational behavior, and managing cultural diversity. Mr. St. Catherine has also worked as a consultant and trainer with the Ministry of Tourism, where he delivered a workshop on developing competitive advantages and strategic alliances. He has also provided support to private institutions such as Sandals, Rainforest Foods, and Noah Energy. Currently, Mr. St. Catherine is the head of the Innovation Lab and Gateways program at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. These programs aim at giving young people hands-on training in running a for-profit business and creating groundbreaking products which will improve many industries, including those associated with the blue economy. So welcome, Mr. St. Catherine, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much for that. Protocol having been established, I'd like to tell everybody a hearty good evening. All right, so we're here to discuss the blue economy, and I wanted to, thank you, summarize some of my beliefs about the blue economy in the next slide that I have here. Okay, the slide up on the screen right now will show you two very fascinating life organisms. One of them is a turtle, and the other one is a sea sponge. And I can tell you for the whole of this week, everybody I've seen, I've been telling them about the sea sponge. I find this animal to be a very fascinating animal. And through my research, I heard that remdesivir, which is used to treat COVID-19 right now, the technology for that actually came from studying the sponge. The sea sponge has been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and with no shell on the outer layer of the sea sponge, and with no immunosystem, okay, and no way of escaping any predators, it has had to defend itself by using organisms and enzymes that it has. And because of that, it has developed so many properties: antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, anti-malarial, and the list goes on. So this is how important the ocean is to us. In other words, a lot of the things we cannot find a cure for on land may actually be in the oceans, and this is why we are here. Okay, next slide, please. The Sir Arthur Lewis Community College is committed to ensuring that the blue economy thrives, and we want to do our part by doing what we do best, and that is educating. All right? So one of the programs that we developed was called the Gateways to Global Careers. And the Gateways to Global Careers program was created to give students an experiential learning facility. In other words, they're not just sitting down and getting theoretical knowledge. So one of the things that we want them to do is actually become entrepreneurs whilst they are at Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. And of course, this goes into them becoming blue economy entrepreneurs. We also have seminars and workshops, and these seminars and workshops are going to be delivered by key global partners such as Arizona State University. Arizona State University being the #1 university for innovation in the United States, and they are one of the premier university for most patents in the United States. So they are some of the people we're collaborating with to ensure that we educate about different topics, including the blue economy. Apart from that, we have partners, one of which is here, which is ICA, and we're going to work with them to have community projects. These community projects are around agriculture, but also we want them to work with the blue economy industry, such as fisheries down here, in order to upgrade that industry, learn more about it, and actually probably even focus on setting up businesses around the blue economy. And of course, we have idea generation competitions whereby they will be prototyping new equipment and so forth. All right, next slide, please. Okay, The other thing, and I guess I'm letting the cat out of the bag early, is that Arthur Lewis Community College will be spearheading or setting up the first innovation lab, well, fully equipped innovation lab in the OECS, okay? The innovation lab aligns with the college's core pillars of sustainability, innovation, and entrepreneurship, which happen to be some of the same core pillars of the blue economy. The blue economy is all about sustainability and innovation, and yes, it contributes a lot to entrepreneurship, with the blue economy, being the 7th largest economy in the world. All right, next slide, please. All right. The lab will have 3 divisions, and the 3 divisions will be the technology lab, which is tech space, and this will focus on app development, robotics, sensors, and so forth, all of which can also be used to enhance the blue economy. We'll also have the food lab, which is called Food Sci, and this lab will experiment on different foods. The next slide I'm going to go into, which is going to be my last slide, will look at what kind of foods we can actually create from the ocean. So we have the food lab, which is Food Sci, and then we have the environmental sciences lab called EnviroTank, and this lab will look at testing the waters, preserving the economy, and preserving the blue economy, and so forth. So all these labs combined will facilitate the blue economy and upgrade what we can do. All right. So our vision at Arthur Lewis is to create these blue economy entrepreneurs and use our lab to leverage what the oceans can produce. You will see from this picture that there are a few items that we probably in the Caribbean, who are surrounded by oceans, should have been developing a long time ago, but we left it to external parties, and they are now being very profitable from them. All right, the first picture I have there is straws, and these straws are made from seaweed. They do not harm the environment, and you can actually eat them. They're edible. The other thing we have is kelp pasta, and kelp pasta is made from kelp seaweed, and it happens to be gluten-free, rich in all vitamin Bs, and yeah, basically it's a great tasting treat that comes from the ocean that we should have been doing a long time ago. The other thing you can see on the slide is that we have a woman who's wearing some nice fashion, and this is actually made from seaweed fibers and fish leather, which comes from the skin of the fish. Okay, and the next thing we have is kelp jerky, and this is another food which comes from the sea that I believe should have been prepared here in the Caribbean. So basically that is my contribution. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. St. Catherine, for this very interesting talk and presenting some very interesting prospects for Sir Arthur in the next, I guess, his next few months. Okay, so I'm now going to invite our next speaker to come to the podium. This is Mr. Jade Hutchinson. He is the co-founder of Guru, an agriculture technology company, and heads the company's operations and business development. He also holds the ultimate responsibility for NOAA Energy's project development and implementation. He is a trustee at KaiTech, I hope I pronounced it correctly, an organization focused on increasing tech entrepreneurship in St. Lucia, and the first vice president of the St. Lucia Archaeological and Historical Society. Jade has an extensive and unique blend of experience in leading complex infrastructure projects for the London 2012 Olympics, including managing the development and delivery of strategies for wayfinding and lighting for London 2012 Olympic Park. He has managed 2 World Bank projects to deliver a 200 kilowatt solar PV system in St. Lucia and Grenada, brand implementation for the Hamad Medical Service, and prepared the branding strategy for the St. Lucia School of Music including in-depth research and analysis to support their strategic direction and positioning. If nothing else, we are seeing a young man here who's extremely diverse, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say.
If nothing else. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Protocol being established, I'd like to thank the organizers for having me on this distinguished panel. So, let's just start. So, I love fish, right? I love salmon, and I remember last time I was going to buy some salmon in St. Lucia. I'm like, I'm in the Caribbean, so why am I spending so much money to buy fish? So, I decided to go walk around the market, and I was able to find all the fish I need. But then you realize that there are many options, and we need to be doing more to be able to get that fish and get what the seafood we have. So one thing when it comes to the economy is we have a lot of low-hanging fruit that we can actually take advantage of, which we aren't doing as much. So as a company, what Guru does as a company is we're trying our best as part of our outcome is to increase profitability of our stakeholders. So whether it be the fishermen, the farmers, the buyers, our key goal is to increase their profitability. Because if they're profitable, we're happy, and we're also going to see the company grow. It's about food security. A company is focused and structured around making sure that the Caribbean, St. Lucia and the Caribbean, we are able to become more food secure as a region. We're trying to increase the local procurement of commodities. So that goes to say we have plenty. Our food import bill currently is about $350 million EC, and out of that, we have there's quite a bit of commodities that we can produce and create locally. So why not take advantage of that? We're trying to reduce our food imports, and our top imports currently are wheat, flour, a lot of processed foods. So if we can start to decrease on these imports, we can start to hopefully eat healthier local food. And that will also then reduce our import bill. And number one for us is how do we use all of that to create employment within the sectors that we're participating in, and obviously what we're trying to do within our company. But how could we create employment within the agriculture sector, within the fisheries sector, so that we have more people benefiting from what's going on? As you can see, there's a big opportunity within the blue economy and within the fisheries sector. We import in 2019, we imported over $84 million EC worth of fish and fish products, whereas the landings in St. Lucia were just about 1 million kilograms, well, just over 1.5 million kilograms of food, of fish. So there's a big disparity between what we actually produce locally and what was landed locally and what we could actually get and the actual size in the market. So the demand for these products are actually really, really high. So Guru is an iconic innovative solution, but the reason for that is we won a competition a few years ago, just within an idea stage for the CTEP program. What the software does, it tries to align the supply of the commodities, of the supply of fish, the supply of agricultural produce, to the demand of the market. Currently, it's done very haphazardly, so therefore you have all these gluts on the productions, but also that's why we can't find what we're looking for. Ever go to a market and try to find snapper or try to find dorado, and you cannot get that. All you get is sardines or something. So the idea is, how do we now start to connect these two to align them? So traditionally, the fisheries sector is usually transactional between the purchasers and the fishermen. So what we have as it goes on now is things are bought and things are sold. So what Guru is trying to do now is look at that sector and increase and start to look at the data. How could we now start to leverage data within the sector to make sure both the purchasers and the fishermen and all the stakeholders start to benefit from that? The demand side is obviously driven by what we eat, by the food experiences out there, by the hotels, by restaurants. So that on the demand side, that's what the purchasers use to understand what they need from the fishermen. Then the data we collect from all these transactions would be then used in partnership with the government, so therefore gives insights. And these partnerships can therefore lead to how we support the sector, whether it be for training programs on new technologies, new processes, new ways of doing things, how we can add technologies on the programs that are instituted by government, as well as how do we work with the purchasers on that side in terms of policy to make sure that everyone can now start to benefit from the sector. Therefore, and from a fisherman standpoint or from a fisher standpoint, what do the suppliers provide to them to therefore increase their productivity? Whether it be, you'll have some more from Laura later, but whether it be fads, whether it be all of the technologies we can implement within that sector to increase the production, therefore we can therefore meet the demand. How do we start to balance what the fishermen do, whether it be in the oceans or aquaponics, etc.? How do we leverage that to increase our production to meet the market demand, and also bringing in some of the financing institutions who can now fund these sorts of things? In Grenada right now, they do use large boats and they go out for days. What's the challenges to us doing that in solution? How do we as a company work with the partners and the stakeholders to be able to leverage that? So although we're a company that, yes, we're trying to make a profit within the sector, we understand that there's a much larger picture, there's a much larger value chain that we need to work with and support in order to make this sector more resilient, to grow the sector, and to become probably, so that we can benefit, not just us, but there are plenty of people who can benefit from that. So whether it be increasing the younger people into fishing, again, we haven't done a lot of that recently, but how could we leverage technologies, make the sectors more exciting so others can actually start to participate? I think that should be it, so thanks.
Thank you, Jade. And what you leave me with, what stood out more than ever, is the need possibly to develop partnerships with our fisher folk. So you know what you need, and how do we help the fisher folk deliver what the market needs? So I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more in that regard. So our next speaker is Miss Wade, and she is an award-winning Caribbean-based ocean advocate, recognized by the Ocean Awards 2020 as a leader on marine conservation issues within the Caribbean through her non-profit organization, Fish and Fins, Inc. Vetta's work supports the design and implementation of projects that place innovation, community well-being, and climate resilience at their core. She is also an advocate for a diverse and inclusive blue economy. Vetta's reef resilience projects involve everything from a sustainable seafood restaurant to business development for global leaders in small-scale fishing vessels monitoring in the Caribbean, pelagic data systems, and exploring how technology can be weaved into decision-making in the Caribbean. So Ms. Wade is going to join us. We are looking forward to her presentation.
Hello, it's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. I bring you greetings from Montserrat, and it's been very interesting listening to the contributions made just before. And so in my short presentation introducing myself and my work, it was very interesting listening to the last presenter who talked about how do we make this, this sector more interesting and engaging so that more people can be a part and that can also benefit as well. So I'm going to do a quick presentation, and just to break up a little bit of our talk, I'm going to show a quick video on the work that I have been doing and very heavily immersed in over the past 5 years, which has been to do with ocean education and marine conservation on the island of Montserrat. So I'm going to quickly share my screen. I'm hoping that you'll be able to see and hear well. It's rebuilding time! All
but paradise don't settle down again. I love every hill and gully, every drop, stream and valley. Kiss still by them moral city, but are nice, nice. Despite the danger.
So that gives you a little bit of a video intro on bringing a little bit of Montserrat to you, and to really share a little bit more about what I have been doing as well. So quickly into my presentation, that's what I'll just do next really quickly. Right, so the contributions that I've made towards the blue economy in Montserrat and the Caribbean was one of the things that was asked of me. And Fish and Fins, you've got it there, Fish and Fins Kids Ocean Club, where we teach children how to swim, snorkel, and get involved in the marine environment, where they start from being totally scared of the sea in many instances to then being reef patrollers. So they look for invasive species, they look for marine debris, they do cleanups, and they're also involved in ocean advocacy and citizen science projects, working with organizations from across the world, and also volunteers from across the world, as far as Serbia and Australia, and institutions such as the Waite Institute and Brown University as well. So they get a really sort of very well-rounded experience of the ocean and the opportunities that it has. Outside of its just sheer beauty and excitement. I've also run a sustainable seafood restaurant on the island of Montserrat, and we worked a lot with local fishers to source fish sustainably. Literally, I would be checking that those fish supplies, making sure that they're the right size, the right species, and so on, for us to be able to table as well. We also did a lot with the lionfish, and working with fishers again to diversify income on doing tours, where they would take visitors to the island on snorkeling trips, where they would fish for lionfish, and that will in turn be prepared by the restaurant. I have also had a tour business on Montserrat called Aqua Montserrat, and we did very eco-friendly tours. There we would do a lot of snorkeling, kayaking trips across the island, and again using and working with a lot of our local fishers and community in that as well. So our visitors were able to learn about the conservation focus of the island, learn about the marine species, and very much doing that from a local perspective. My work with regards to the blue economy has really sort of left me with some really deep thinking and internalization about where we're going with the blue economy. What does this mean for our people? What does that mean for our children and our next generation? And, I think it was last year when I really had this moment where I thought, well, if we've spent a lot of time exciting children, next generation, teaching them to swim, getting them involved in diving and snorkeling, but they still are not able to see how this connects to a job, an opportunity for education and so on, then we haven't made a big enough impact. And so I then started to do a lot more work within the blue economy through my Kids Ocean Club and also in consultancy. I started a live web series, which you can catch every Wednesday via Facebook. We've done one series, it's called The Blue Zone, and we're starting again next month. And that's a real educational opportunity for communities across the Caribbean, not just Montserrat, to really speak to what the blue economy means for us. What do we envision for a blue economy in the next 15 years, for instance, and to ensure this conversation really hits the grassroots in our communities as well. Also last November 14th, we ran the first ever Aqua Caribbean Blue Economy Conference, which aimed to really connect youth and potential collaborators across the Caribbean and also the wider world to the conversation as it regards to a blue economy for the Caribbean. And we're really focused on some of the solutions and also highlighting a lot of the visionaries in the region, a lot of the actionists in the region. So we've had Nicola on from the Nicola Simpson on from the UNDP. We had one of the heads of the MIT Ocean Lab there, and a number of different speakers across this space, and we're looking forward to doing that again in this year. And so some of the challenges that I think we're experiencing within the blue economy is just really, I think, it could be broken down into two, and it's people and it's policy. And when it comes to people and people in the community, yes, there are some of us who are very well informed, probably visionaries in our space. Some may describe us as being ahead of the time. But as one of the, I think it was the first speaker who said, the blue economy has been here from our very existence. But there is still, so many of us who are still struggling to understand the concept. How does it benefit us? How can we be a part of it? And how can we maybe shift or pivot our businesses and our studies, etc., so that we can really be on the cutting edge of the blue economy and be a part of some of the exciting initiatives that have been laid out already for the evening. And the other challenge, I think, as well is around policy. The educational aspect, developing the skills. So we have the communication and awareness, but we also need to make sure that the islands of the Caribbean have the full capacity to be able to benefit from this blue economy. And one of the concerns within this space is that big funders, big money, big investors could in fact come into the region to do things like exploring for marine pharmaceuticals or things like that. And, the majority of those funds will leave the islands. And how much have we protected the interest of our people, and how much will they be able to get the high-paying jobs and develop the unique skills that might be necessary in many cases to benefit in this area. So, technical and financial assistance, the money is always a big deal, of course, and building the collaborations to see that we do get that support and finance on a very equal and partnered level. And, finally, of course, I think often with the ocean space, anything to do with the sea, we often see a lot of men being involved and not as many women as well. So I think one of our challenges too will be through education and skill development, ensuring that we have a real sort of equality of access for both men and women to this space as well. And one of the solutions going forward, if you look up my website, vitaware.com, you will be able to download a free white paper that I wrote at the end of last year, which sort of inspired the work around the Afro-Caribbean Blue Economy Conference. And that is a framework for the Equitable Blue Economy Conference. And just because really, weighing heavily on my mind and my conscience in this space, and from my own experience, I recognize that as Caribbean people, we all need to have and share our voice and opinion in regards to this space, what we would like the narrative around the Caribbean blue economy to be, making sure it certainly fits within a Caribbean context. And I think one of the number one recommendations that I had in this paper, and I hope that you will all take some time to read through it, is access to swimming. Making sure that we have access to the ocean and ocean innovation through education. And it's really because water safety, ecology, innovation, it all goes hand in hand. And to be able to build this excitement and this enthusiasm and the benefits and really share the awareness around the benefits for the ocean, it's very important that our communities can safely access the sea. They can learn to swim in very safe scenarios, and that we have the sort of marine watch programs in place across the islands, and that we're teaching our young people learning to swim and learning about our ocean environment all at once. So that's a little bit of a synopsis about who I am and the work that I have been doing, and I'm looking forward to the discussions very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Ms. Wade. Very, very interesting, and a lot to go leave with, a lot to go away with. The need to get people just more interested in the blue economy, in oceans, and getting children to know how to swim. Because if they know how to swim, they can get into the water and they can feel a lot more secure in doing research in the marine environment. Our next speaker is Laura Japier. She is a marketing specialist, a brand manager by training, and a social entrepreneur by profession. And she hails from the small fishing village of Labrie. She's a human rights activist. She's a talk show host, highlighting on social and political issues, as well as spotlighting the achievements of women and youth in society. She's a social entrepreneur. In 2016, she co-founded Tropical Bookings, a travel boutique agency which focused on small and intimate properties across St. Lucia and the wider OECS. In 2019, she co-founded Invictus Inc., a climate change adaptation company which specializes in smart ocean technologies, providing green solutions in a blue world, creating local solutions to global challenges. In 2019, her company won the enviable Prime Minister's Award for Innovation and was runner-up for the Chamber of Commerce Environmental Stewardship Award. She is the reigning Get in the Ring St. Lucia champ. Laura's ultimate aim is to help citizens generate sustainable economic activity in their communities, thereby proving that despite their circumstance, they can rise above. Laura, very, very welcome.
Thank you. One of the things I hate is, I hate is a strong word, but I really dislike, is listening to my own bio. Just makes me feel a little pompous, I think, and thinking of the things I've accomplished and the things I've done, my goals. It shouldn't really be anything to be nervous about, but I really don't like it. One of the other things I don't like is to hear myself speak, and that is kind of strange because I'm a talk show host. But it's just one of those things, right? You just don't put together with your profession, but here it goes. Thank you for bringing the mic down. I realize everybody else was more vertically endowed than I am. Thank you very much. When I speak to most people about sustainability, they use sustainability to mean the ability to maintain at a certain pace or the ability to defend a certain position. In other words, they mean maintaining the status quo. However, sustainability is so much more than that. Sustainability draws attention to meeting the requirements of the present without compromising the capacity of the future generations to meet their needs. The concept of sustainability is composed of three pillars. That's economic, environmental, and social, also more commonly known as profits, planet, and people. How do we mesh those three things? Oceans and seas, rivers, waterways, and estuaries are undeniably essential for sustainable development. Sustainable use of oceans is critical to the poverty reduction, food security, livelihoods, and mitigating climate change. Therefore, healthy oceans and seas are essential to a sustainable future for companies like mine. It is our lifeblood. Invictus is a climate change adaptation company, and we focus on smart ocean technologies. As we all know, 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered in water. The ocean is an incubator of all life forms, the linchpin essential to sustaining life on the planet. They are fundamental in sustaining and preserving human life. And I have a few hashtags that I will be highlighting throughout my presentation. The first one is hashtag Oceans for Life. Now, the moderator did say I was a talk show host, right? And I'm so glad that everybody else before me exceeded the 3 minutes, because I know that I will as well. So just bear with me. Our contribution to the blue ocean economy. Firstly, our first innovation is the Life Cube, and it has revolutionized the way we look at desalination and its ensuing byproduct brine. Desalination in and of itself is a mature technology, but it is a two-edged sword. Like we would say colloquially, it's a couteau de lame. On the one hand, it provides a necessary solution to water scarcity, but on the other hand, it is detrimental to the ecosystem, whether it's marine or otherwise. You see, brine is 3 times the salinity of the ocean, and thus can be injurious to flora and fauna. Yet, it is an abundant source of water. Hashtag Oceans for Water. The Life Cube was developed out of necessity. My partner and I, who's sitting in the audience, so be mindful of that. So when you're asking questions, I'll be asking him to answer some of the questions as well. My partner and I are from Labrie, and when it rains, we have no water, much less in the drought season. My partner's invention, the brine management system, which goes with the Life Cube, and neutralizes brine, making it harmless, to be pumped back into the ocean, ensures that desalination meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs, their water needs, their food needs. Our second innovation is it's called the smart fad. Now, that is not out yet. So you're one of the very few people who know about the smart fad. We're actually working on that presently. And a fad is nothing more than a fish aggregating device, and it is a structure or device that is made for any material and used to lure fish. So anything on the water can be a fad. And if some of you are aware or familiar with fishing, you would have heard some of our fishermen talk about a bois on the water. You know, they got a bois. And that is what a fish aggregating device is. It's just anything. It could be a piece of wood, it could be a bois, it could be anything on the water that lures fish. So the fish use it as shelter, and they aggregate underneath this, and the fishermen use it as a fishing device. Fads are the most efficient and widely used fishing method, and its intent is to ensure fishers spend less time searching for profitable fishing grounds. However, this supposed savior to fishers is quite harmful sometimes, in that they're largely unregulated. Now, while fads have indeed helped fishermen discover more fishing grounds, land more fish, waste less fuel and effort, there is a concern for the ecological impacts of using such technology. Because fads attract a variety of fish, often endangered species and juvenile fish are caught incidentally. I'm not sure. I'm from a fishing village, so you would hear me use a lot of terms that are used by fishermen and people who live in a fishing community. So sometimes we hear our fishermen talk about pinkies, they say, oh, all they caught for the day were pinkies. These pinkies are actually juvenile tuna, and they're sometimes my hand is not very big, but sometimes they're the size of my hand. And we all know how big, and tunas can be bigger than the span of my arms, are. So if we're catching the fish the size of my hand, and a tuna can grow to be bigger than the span of my arms, then we all know what I'm talking about. Fads, when they are abandoned at sea, contribute to a global problem of marine debris and can even entangle wildlife, specifically sea turtles. Some also worry that fads can alter the migration patterns of some tuna species. So sometimes we hear we're not catching any fish. They're not biting. It's because the migratory patterns have changed and we don't know why. Can't understand why. We don't have the information to tell us why. The use of the smart fad is meant to take the guesswork out of fishing such that it mitigates unfettered abuse, principally resulting in exhausted fishing grounds. The issue of overfishing has mostly been rooted in the unknown, gaps in data, and the absence of clear regional management guidelines. Life history traits, including growth rate, age at maturity, and size, are important variables to catalog in order to militate against unregulated exploitation. Uncovering the reality behind these statements should be a priority for fishers and fisheries overall. If we are to truly alleviate the pressure of overfishing that overfishing places on stocks and our ecosystem. These are just two examples of prospects for the blue economy in St. Lucia and of how sustainable development can impact food security. Hashtag oceans for food. The smart fad, which is, we call it the Magellan, is different from existing technology. And earlier we would have heard Jade of Guru speak to his platform, which connects buyers and sellers, getting what we need when we need it. And the smart fad can actually fit into that platform seamlessly because the intention is to go beyond aggregating to incorporate functions of intelligence, actuation, and control in order to describe and analyze the situation and make decisions based on the available data in an extrapolative or robust manner, thereby performing smart actions. Through a multifaceted approach, improving FAD data collection and reporting could lead to enhancing enforcement of existing management measures while working with skippers on best practices at sea to help reduce capacity and fishing effort, while promoting science-led efforts. We hope that the smartness of the system can create a cadre of smart fishers and more sustainable livelihoods. Hashtag Oceans for Life. And I could go on and on and on. There's the SGPs that we are guided by, reduction in poverty, clean, fresh water for all, and so on and so on. But time is against us. However, I'd like to talk a little bit about challenges to our blue economy. Our oceans are facing significant existential ecological risks that can negatively impact our societal and economic prospects. We must have a great understanding and appreciation of the economic potential of our marine natural resources. There are significant development opportunities to be had in harnessing these resources. Sustainable fisheries. This can represent a significant part of our economic output. As demand for fish and fish products continue to grow, we need to explore options directed at securing economic benefits while ensuring sustainable management of resources. We hear a lot of talk about tourism, and some of us are wondering why in this pandemic, when nobody can travel, are we talking about tourism? But one thing I have noticed, and I've been speaking to my partner about it a lot, and actually on our way up here, we were just discussing it. Everybody wants to know what else other than tourism, but why can't it be tourism and something else? I mean, we had cocoa and just cocoa, and where is cocoa? Then we had to figure out something else. We went into bananas and just bananas, and now there's no bananas. So we went into tourism and just tourism. You get the point? You see where I'm going with this? We're doing things in silos. We're doing things one at a time. We can multitask. We could do many things. And I think the blue ocean economy is here for that. And tourism is one of the things that has been our mainstay. And while we try to pivot into other things, there is fishing lodges that we could have. I mean, last year or year before, the Bahamas was struck by hurricanes, and the island that was struck was huge on fishing lodges. And I don't think any other Caribbean island was able to come in and say, yay, we're going to pick up the slack. St. Lucia didn't, and we have the capacity. So I'm saying that marine and coastal tourism does still have a role to play. There's a need to and I could have gone into others like marine transport, but that's Cuthbert's field of expertise. So I don't want to step on his toes, because really and truly I really sound like a dunce when we have the expert seated right here. There's a need to mainstream the blue economy to focus comprehensively on the use of marine ecosystems and resources within ecological limits. We need to find and embrace opportunities to engage in the process of creating sustainable livelihoods, which would ultimately lead to the shaping of oceans governance. Now, we're not talking about a document which sits in some bureaucratic office, but one that is enacted and is familiar to all of the stakeholders, which includes sustainable management to all, as well as curbs, disciplines, and corrects harmful fisheries. Our oceans are facing significant existential ecological risks, as I said earlier, that can negatively impact our social and economic prospects. Rise in sea levels due to climate change, overexploitation and poor management of marine resources, including fisheries, wastewater runoff, deposits of pollutants, etc. Our oceans are critical in the use of climate change as they influence water patterns and temperatures. And finally, how can we improve our blue economy? Most of our communities are built in close proximity to the coast, and the high level of dependence our citizens place on our marine assets is putting unprecedented pressure on marine ecosystems. The concept of the blue economy embodies economic and trade activities that integrate conservation and sustainable use and management of biodiversity, elements required for a rigid and robust blue economy. And we're talking about trade, we're talking about finance, we're talking about technology, we're talking about capacity building. Let's just not pay lip service to the blue economy. It is something that's very real. It is a tool that we can use to pivot our economies. The blue economy supports sustainable livelihoods and food security. The overexploitation and poor management of marine resources have resulted in lost opportunities, heightened food insecurity, as well as diminished opportunities for some of our more marginalized. I mean, we had a meeting with some fishers, and one fisher actually said that if things don't change in the fishing industry, in fisheries, he's going to be at Bordelais within a year. That's sad, but it's a very real reality for a lot of our fishers. The future we want entails protecting and restoring the health, productivity, and resilience of our oceans and marine ecosystems to maintain their biodiversity, enabling their conservation and sustainable use for present and future generations. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Laura. Well, she did warn us that she was going to go over, and she, if nothing else, kept to her promise. So our last speaker is Mr. Brent Theophil. He works actively in agriculture and rural development with a focus on agribusiness management, entrepreneurship, economic analysis, that is used to inform decision-making and research. He is the National Specialist for ICA in St. Lucia. In addition to extensive experience in conducting research for a range of subject matters, he has expertise in entrepreneurship and rural enterprise development, fisheries economics, and agriculture policy. He is the author of a number of publications related to the blue economy, and I thought I'd just mention a couple: economic analysis of yellowfin tuna in the market for high-value agricultural products, competitive capability in Dominica, and economic analysis of the targeting strategies of artisanal fishers in Dominica. Okay, so Mr. Theophil, welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Felix, and my appreciation to Sir Arthur Lewis Community College for the invitation to participate in this distinguished panel and to contribute to the conversation this evening.
the conversation on the blue economy really focuses on the sustainable use of our ocean or marine resources. We are looking at the creation of jobs. We are looking at enhancing livelihoods. We are looking at making positive contributions to ocean ecosystems and putting all of that together to support economic growth. The next slide, please. My ruminating on the blue economy and contributing to the conversation today led me to this very lovely illustration that I came across. I think it nicely gives context to the different areas that the blue economy offers for growth, for job creation, for exploration, and for research that can be commercialized. It also, for me, helped in giving perspective to what I really wanted to emphasize today, which is in giving grounding to the conversations that we're having on starting points. How to make this relevant to the fisher folk, to the persons who are already actively engaged in areas related to the blue economy. And seeing how, like I think Laura mentioned in her presentation, to really talk to them as to how they can be a part of this altogether. So for me, the starting point is really having a basis to build things on, so that we're not building in the sky, but we're building on tangible areas that are relevant, that are accessible, and that people have some level of familiarity with. Next slide, please. And in the case of St. Lucia, I mean, there's a lot to talk about with regards to that. We have some really dynamic entrepreneurs who've been making really good progress with regards to exactly what I'm talking about. There are a number of areas that, as an investor, as an economist, immediately draw my attention. I'm talking about having demonstrable minimum viable products, opportunities for growth, short-term avenues that we can get the ball going with a medium to long-term outlook for development, for raising profits, for expansion, good opportunities for employment, as well as attractive to investment. And St. Lucia doesn't lack with regards to those things, in my perspective. What this tells me is that we have some good starting points. I'll tell you what, Carlis, Johanan, if you're listening, if we're talking about investment and opportunities, this is it. You already have my attention. Don't mind ICA headquarters. We need to talk, right? Those are the things that will draw persons to put money into viable areas, because it will make money. At the end of the day, people are looking for opportunities. More and more, we recognize that we need entrepreneurs. We don't need desk jobs. We don't need office jobs. We need entrepreneurs. They are the engine of our economies. They are the ones that are primarily responsible for the dynamism of our economies, the resilience of our economies. And we need to take that same outlook and apply it to our conversation on the blue economy. So for me, this is where we start, with these guys that have the risk appetite, that have done that legwork, that have a minimum viable product, that are attractive to investment, and have the potential for good returns. Next slide, please. So I wanted to offer some perspective. I really want persons to come away from the conversation this afternoon understanding where we can start that conversation, and some practical measures that we can take to show that there is added value, even in something that we are already familiar with, which is fishing. So for me, I thought of this as a good one-two combo for tackling the blue economy, a good one-two combination of things that we can immediately draw back value, start businesses around, and create a buzz, create excitement for fisher folk, for persons in the coastal communities, for investors, for ordinary citizens. So starting firstly, no, please go back. Thank you. Starting firstly with looking at targeting and gear efficiency. That alone, I did some work in this area in Dominica back in 2011. In a few landing sites in Dominica, we realized that by simply working to optimize their catch portfolio, changing their targeting practices, where they went, their gear, and better utilize, learn how to better handle and use their gear, fisher folk could increase their revenues by as much as $1,000 US in a fishing season. Just over a 3-month fishing season, we could increase their net revenue by over $1,000 US from just making those changes. So that tells me that in harnessing information, harnessing data, and our knowledge, there is additional avenue for us to exploit, for us to leverage. And that already has me excited and interested, because there's money to be made in that. not just in the application of the data, but in the commercialization of the data and a couple other interesting areas as well, right? My second area in the 1-2 combination, bycatch utilization, waste utilization. We walk along fishing sites. I'm from Dominica, so I'm familiar with a number of the fishing sites in San Sauver, in Scottshead, in Soufriere, in Maho, across the country. And Marigot especially, some good opportunities there. And you go to the fishing sites, and something that you'll invariably see, because I see it here as well, is fish guts, fins, scales floating in the water right there. And I go there and I look at it and I say, that's money. I look at it and I see money in the water that nobody is utilizing, because those can be processed into very high quality organic fertilizers. Very high quality organic fertilizers. And we're talking about an industry that has a global value of $6.3 billion. Cumulative annual growth rate up to 2017 was 13% per annum. That is somewhere I want to stick my inquisitive nose into, because there's money to be made. And what better, we're increasing our efficiency in utilizing the resources that are available to us. We're talking about fish guts and waste that we throw away, converting that into something that is a viable industry that is immediately relevant to our local context. And I think that there's a lot of work that can be done in building collaboration between our fisher folk, our agro-processors, our rural women agro-processors in the fishing communities, our young persons who are interested in engineering, in biology, in biotechnology, having a conversation with them around this. These are things that will attract investment, that will attract young persons. And I know for a fact we'll make money. Because when persons are concerned, when they meet me and they're asking about organic agriculture, and we did some work on that as well for St. Lucia, and got some really interesting results. Persons are looking for these types of inputs into agriculture going forward to correct the degrading effects of inorganic fertilizer in combination with other factors that we've seen in our soils, on land here, which translates to pollution and degradation of our marine resources. So we're coming full circle by tackling just the simple 1-2 combination. Full circle in integrating the green economy with the blue economy and creating avenues for creative industries as well. Lovely 1-2 combination. Next slide, please. In ICA's context, and I wanted to put this up, not just to big up, to highlight the work that ICA has done, even though ICA is a very well recognized and distinguished institution with over 30 years work experience in St. Lucia and contributing to the sustainable development of this economy. But to say that in any given context, in any given work program, there are avenues for creating those linkages, the synergies that demonstrate where this value can be created by working with entrepreneurs, by working with the primary actors. Because more than anyone else, they need to be the ones engaged, to have that fire in their gut about driving development of the blue economy. It's not going to be table desktop workers. It's not going to be quiet little persons that sit behind a computer. It will be them. We need entrepreneurs. Blue economy offers avenues for those entrepreneurs. And across the board, wherever you look, there are avenues for us to work with them. Whether it be with regards to agricultural health and food safety, it's relevant to SPS measures for fish and fishery products for trade. It's relevant for agricultural development. It's relevant for territorial development. It's relevant for terrestrial development. It's relevant to climate change, natural disaster, and risk adaptation. These avenues that we're talking about are things that impact on entrepreneurs and real businesses. Anything we do with regards to development of our perspective for agriculture or the blue economy has to be relevant to these people, invariably. That said, I think that brings me to the end of my contribution. For sure, I stuck within the 3 minutes, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brent, for your presentation and a number of recommendations being made. So this ends the round of presentations by our panelists, and it means because we have some limited time, we are going to be able to open the floor to questions and comments. So I'm first going to see if we have any questions from our online viewers. I have not seen anything presented yet, so I will enjoy the moderator's privilege. And first, I'm going to share with the panelists what I've gotten from the range of presentations that have been made today. We've spoken about the wide range of opportunities presented to us by the blue economy. We've spoken about the blue economy like it's new, although Cuthbert did say it's gone back a bit. I think, what date did you give us, Cuthbert? 1492. Columbus, and I would even challenge you to say it was pre-Columbian, because we had people living on the islands before Columbus, and they survived. And a great part of their survival was by fishing. So we could even say that we had the blue economy in existence even before. So from what I'm gathering, we have a lot of opportunity. Now we all know that there are blue economy industries and investments in existence. St. Lucia has built built a large part of its economy on the fishing industry, and we continue to build and we continue to see economic development through our tourism sector. We have our cruise ship industries, we have transportation. 90%, I may be wrong, but a significant percentage of what we have in the country has arrived here by ocean. So we do have some industries already well established under the blue economy. From our panelists, we are saying, whilst we are making some use, we are far from reaching the target that we can. There's a much more for us to achieve. You've indicated that we need to start thinking outside the box, and the reason that you have been selected as panelists is because you represent the groups that have started exploring industries outside of the traditional ones of fishing and tourism. So the question is, you have started leaping off the platform, but you say you need others to join. And the leap needs to be greater. And I had a number of questions here, and some of them you've answered, because the question is, why? What is stopping? Why don't we have more people exploring and doing research? Is it the lack of knowledge? Is it the lack of interest, the lack of motivation? Is it that people are not trained? Our education system has not lent itself to getting our young people to start thinking in a serious way that I want to become a fisherman. I'm an A student. I top my class at St. Mary's College or at St. Joseph's Convent, and my aim is to be invest in fishing. So where are we falling short? So this is a question I'm going to, I know you may have mentioned it in a few ways, but I think we need to bring that together. I hope we have a number of young persons in our audience and that we can tell them what is out there. They may not have gotten the information from school, although I'm sure Brent is going to say that Sir Arthur is going to make a change in this. So what's holding us back? So I don't know if anybody wants to grab. Okay, yes, Laura.
I'm glad you started with this question, and I'm glad I'm the first person to answer that question because it strikes home so closely for me. If a child, and you spoke of St. Mary's College and St. Joseph's Convent, you didn't speak of Corinth or Vidbutai Secondary. You spoke of the supposedly top schools on the island. The first thing a parent is going to say, are you crazy? So the mindset of our people needs to change. Because for us, if you're a fisherman, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel. What I want to say, while we have this platform, my partner, who developed and innovated the Life Cube and is doing the Smart Fad, is a high school dropout. Okay? He's a high school dropout. Yeah, I heard some people clapping. Yes, you can go ahead. He's a high school dropout, but that did not interrupt his education. It did not interrupt his learning. And a lot of the times we think because we went to top tier schools, we cannot do certain jobs. He's an engineer. So it's not just about, okay, I'm going out there and I'm doing artisan fishing, or I'm doing reef fishing, or I'm going out there and burning and scorching in the sun. There's so much more. There's technology to be developed. There's so much information, and I'm sure Brent with his innovation lab and Sir Arthur would love to have some of the information. Valerie would love to have some of the information that we will be collecting once the Smart Fad has been deployed. So it's a matter of changing our mindset and understanding that it's not which school you've been to. It's what you've learned and how you can relay what you've learned in a real sense. How can you sustain yourself? And we're talking about sustainability. We're talking about, livelihoods. This is the real thing. This is the real thing. It's not, as the other Brent mentioned, putting on a tie, and we have to Brent. Putting on a tie and going and sitting behind a desk and crunching numbers and flipping papers. It's about how can you relate or relay what you have learned to help sustain livelihoods, provide for yourself and for future generations.
Okay, thank you very much. And Cuthbert is, yeah?
Yes, very good point, Laura. To answer your question, it's a very complex question that requires a lot of responses, and that was one. We in St. Lucia are suffering from a serious duality that's killing us. We act as if we don't have options, and our vision is often compromised. I'll give an example. We have 2 Peters, we have 2 Nobel laureates, we have 2 political parties. We never are willing, like Sir Arthur and Derek, to explore into a wider vision. And when you speak of the blue economy encompasses so much, from fisherfolk to yacht registration, to connectivity, to regattas, to events on the beach. But let's be serious. The people who sit in cabinet, how many of them can swim? How many of them go to the beach? Is there a policy of the blue economy? My colleague from the fisheries, you have some passionate people. Look at what we have allowed the Soufrière Marine Management Area to become. This is a success story studied by the Great Barrier Reef of Australia. PhD students have come down. SMMA has dealt with user conflict. It has addressed yachting, fisherfolk, diving, you name it. And yet still, look at SMMA now, 20 years. So my point is, yes, you're right. They are entrepreneurs, but there needs to be a national policy. We need to have a paradigm shift that is not only either tourism or bananas. We can extend it. We can explore all these great ideas that we've heard today. And I am flabbergasted that we do not take our coastal development and these waters serious in our national development. That would help. We need a paradigm shift, and it's very, very important.
Okay, so Brent, if I may, Ms. Wade has also would like to speak, so I'm going to let her speak first, and then you will be next. Okay, so Vetta.
Yeah, in many ways, I was just really, supporting the panelists who just contributed there. And I just wanted to share that one of the insights that I think we're observing is also to do with this sort of the culture of a sort of hyper individualization or individualism, I should say, where we tend to look more at our personal impact, you know, and our personal benefit, whether or not it's financial or for business growth or whatever it is, as opposed to really looking at the collective good. And this sort of mindset, I think, is what really needs to somehow change in our communities, where we're looking more at the overall impact, and that type of collective and collaborative approach for business impact as well. So when we see skills and opportunity, how can we sort of embrace, you know, our communities, our academic institutions, and our policymakers in a way that we are able to jointly benefit. And so I think a lot of the things that we need to probably bear in mind, bearing in mind of as entrepreneurs, as business people, is you know, looking at how do we provide an opportunity to raise other people up, and to really sort of pinpoint and support those in the community who are the actionists, who are committed, who are progressive, and are and seen to be collaborators, and sort of make them champions for the blue economy. And I think somebody alluded to that before. And I think this is really important, is to really just have this collective mindset. How can we share lessons learned and technical ability, financial streams of funding across Caribbean islands? How can we have an innovation lab that has an arm in Montserrat, and another in Barbados, another in St. Lucia, if these are the 3 islands that are, for instance, leading in blue economy? And so it's about this collective and collaborative support, I think is also quite important, and really starting to really look for the blue champions, whether or not we can elevate them in our own circles. Sometimes, yes, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the policy level, but how can we elevate this from the ground up and using our own circles of influence? Because at the end of the day, it's, you know, whether or not, you know, politics and politicians, you know, policy reacts to groundswell opinion. And that's where we really need to start to really hit home in the communities about where this blue economy can take us. This outreach, this engagement, this stakeholder conversations need to really do a lot more work.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vetta, for this. I'm going to invite now Brent, and then I know Dr. Nurse would like to make his contribution after. Brent?
Okay, all right, thank you. Very interesting points made, and I think one of the things is that we have not done enough for the young people in terms of entrepreneurship. And I have to applaud Sir Arthur Lewis and the new leader, Dr. Nurse, for putting us on the right path right now. The support systems were not there for young people, and I say that because we are creating an innovation lab right now, and this has been years coming. A lot of students come to me and they say, "Sir, well, we have an idea, but we cannot commercialize it. We don't have the facilities to test it, to get the right ingredients, to create the proper packaging and so forth." And we just have shortchanged them. So what we need to do, if we want to enhance the blue economy as well as get our young people more involved in this kind of entrepreneurship, is that we have to create a better ecosystem. More people need to be mentors. The financial institutions need to come on board and finance these young people. There's always a struggle for financing. Okay. Also, we need to train them better. A lot of schools are using outdated technology. A lot of schools are not doing robotics up to this point. All of these things affect what we do in the blue economy, and we have to move towards that. A lot of the schools, the computers are using outdated software. We're using Windows, whatever. So all of these things have to change. We need to start collaborating also with other institutions, find out what research they're doing and partner with them. We need to learn from them too. All of these systems need to be put in place to support our young people. And I think Sir Arthur Lewis is doing a good job of that by, one, spearheading the Innovation Lab, and secondly, creating a Gateways program where students can actually become entrepreneurs whilst at school. And that includes entrepreneurs in the blue economy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Brent. So, Dr. Nurse, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Nurse, you could go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, today has been a Blue Economy Day for me because this morning I participated in an expert group meeting organized by the European Union and the OECD to talk about creating new possibilities in the outermost regions of Europe, which includes our neighbors like Martinique and Guadeloupe, St. Martin, French Guiana, and so on. But it also includes Indian Ocean regions like La Réunion, Mayotte, and so on. So the European Union is very mindful that these economies are lagging behind, not too dissimilar to what's happening with most other small economies, and particularly in the context of COVID. And so the purpose of the project is not just a research project, it's actually it's an implementation project where they're dedicating significant resources towards transforming the economies. And one of the top areas that has been selected for investment is the blue economy, along with the agroeconomy, as well as the creative industries. So I'm really very supportive of many of the presentations. And I want to agree, for example, with Mr. Cuthbert Didier that we do need a paradigm shift. Yeah, I mean, it was several years ago I was doing some work in Mauritius, and it was indicated to me that Mauritius has a development strategy premised not on being a small island, but being a large ocean state. And so once you flip the paradigm, you see new possibilities. And so the question that I want to raise, though, is what are the areas for collaboration with our neighbors, particularly Martinique, which is within swimming distance from St. Lucia. I see it every day from my apartment, and I wonder why St. Lucia is not having a stronger economic relationship with Martinique. And so the blue economy is probably the most important opportunity in regards to that relationship. So I don't know if the panelists can share some thoughts on the matter. I think this is really low-hanging fruit, as we say in literature. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Just a note to our viewers who are watching NTN. The station will have to go off at 7 o'clock, but this is not going to be the end of the program. Those of you that are viewing on NTN, at 7, you can switch to the SALCC Facebook page or YouTube channels to continue following us on this discourse. Okay? Thank you very much, Dr. Nurse, for your contribution. I'd like to share some of the thoughts from our viewers. I think most of this is from Zoom. We first have Mrs. Williams agreeing that, in fact, the blue economy existed well beyond the 1492. And then we have a question from one of our viewers asking, why aren't the relevant players not buying into the blue economy? Okay, and I'm going to just, I want the panelists, if you have an opinion on this, just to keep this one in mind. And we have another contribution, and this is from a student from South Louis Community College. And she says that we are definitely a small island developing state, which indicates that we are on the front line for climate change. And therefore, the concern about the blue economy has to become much more popular for young people, because we need to find a way for the young people to become, to enable them greater innovation and awareness. So we have young persons recognizing the importance of the blue economy, and they're saying that there needs to be greater involvement, but there also, I guess, needs to be greater motivation for persons to become invested in the blue economy. My question also to the panelists are we saying, and this may be in the absence of maybe potential investors here, and maybe we have someone in one of our banks, etc., who's listening on, are we saying that the powers that be, those who have the capacity to invest, are not doing so? Is there a disparity between someone coming in and wants to invest in something from the marine environment vis-a-vis some other industry like maybe agriculture or setting up an Airbnb? Is there a disparity? Is there a greater challenge? Does anybody want? So, okay, I'm going to let Brent first. Thank you.
So the question, I think principally, as Vetta made a really good point, the initial interventions that are done that show promise, that generate money, those are the things that create the swell, that motivates further action. So industry growth, demonstrating that persons can make money from the interventions that we're doing, that attracts additional investment. It attracts the policymakers, and it helps shape that environment and that ecosystem to be further supportive and self-sustaining with time. However, to start, I think with regards to the initial question on attracting investment, despite your risk appetite, I mean, you need some basis for guiding your decision to invest your money, your hard-earned money, into something. And I think a starting point is working with these potential entrepreneurs and the existing entrepreneurs that want to move from ideation to minimum viable product, in establishing the metrics that would make an investor attractive, running the numbers, showing the potential, and besides simply waiting for the government or other persons to step in and to make the investment, why not support ordinary citizens who are interested and concerned for the well-being of their fellow citizens who want to make investment? Crowdfunding options are available, but we have no local mechanism to facilitate that. If I want to invest in an Argus or into a Magellan or any other initiative, how can I comfortably do that, knowing that I have support, I have a mechanism that I can tap into to do so? I think those are good starting points for that conversation.
Okay, yes, let's hear from Jade. Yes, but Jade doesn't.
Well, since I'll let you argue about whether I should answer a question or not. But so there are a couple of things to piggyback off some of the things Brent said. Recently we had a discussion, and I realized that there are plenty of players in the field, but the collaboration is just not there. So lessons learned, because as Guru, we've done all the work in agriculture, and lessons learned from that can actually be taken to the other sectors. What I've found is when you have the big players who are the purchasers directly involved in projects or directly involved in supporting their producers, then you get to see things happen. So these sorts of partnerships and investments by the bigger players within the market to support the other players can actually be beneficial. Another thing Brent mentioned that in terms of the skill level, or what I found is within what we've been doing with Chai Tech is there is that sort of mentorship that's necessary of younger entrepreneurs, and too often we treat fishing and agriculture as a mom and pop shop, right? What you find is with agriculture and fishing, there's both the science to it as well as the business side of what's going on. Generally, I remember someone telling me that these fishermen and farmers are actually entrepreneurs. They're probably some of the strongest entrepreneurs with the fact that they can keep their businesses going for so long. However, the support that's needed, we need to start looking at the structure around these sorts of industries, which is lacking. I mean, it's lacking in general for entrepreneurship, but these sorts of mentorship, finance, and other structures are needed within entrepreneurship for a hotel sector or for someone in business. These structures are actually necessary and needed within these other agricultural and fishing sectors as well. So that's something that if we can start to pull these sorts of structures together, we can start to help with what's going on.
Okay, yes, Jade, and I have some comments on this, but I'm going to invite Cuthbert first.
I got very excited by, is it Dr. Nurse's question? Martinique, that's very interesting. Martinique is oftentimes regarded as this French island next door. Martinique is France sitting in the Caribbean. And he is so right. It is the lowest hanging fruit that we have. There is an informal alliance with Martinique in the terms of connectivity and yachting. Martinique is an interesting story, and we can learn a lot. There's a village called Le Marais that was a sleepy village back in the 1980s. The French came up with something called a defiscalization. The defiscalization creates tax write-offs for 20 years in any investment to do with maritime. Any. So if you build in boats, if you import in boats, if you sell in fish, if you rent in dinghies, not you name it. Le Marais has turned into the Genoa of Caribbean yachting. Every yacht that leaves Martinique, and Martinique is home to almost 80,000 yachts. Every yacht that leaves Martinique heads to the Grenadines. Where do they stop first? St. Lucia. We have not even touched the connectivity. I'll give an example, Mercury Beach. Mercury Beach, an event that brought close to 10,000 Martinicans to party on a beach. And yet still, we couldn't understand that concept. They came with euros, they spent money, they lobby, because we are still very much into the brick and mortar tourism. And I go back to appreciate the low-hanging fruit and to appreciate the entrepreneurs in the potential blue economy. We need to have a paradigm shift, and we need to have a policy. The blue economy needs to be part of our national development strategy. Yes, we talk about entrepreneurs, but how do you get access to finance? How difficult is it for a fisherman to go to a bank and get a loan to buy a boat to fish? The first thing they're going to tell him is, you can run away on another island with the boat, not recognizing that if his boat is registered, that's having a lien on a boat. We need the powers that be needs to appreciate fully. It needs a champion. We can have Martinique, and I'm not in any way downplaying the potential entrepreneurs and investment, but we need to create an easier way for people to gain access to capital other than just brick and mortar tourism. We need to, and it's a mindset. How do we lobby them? Your other question, why aren't the key people taking advice? Again, I go back. When we are accepting leadership, we need to question and we need to push on our agenda that we need a champion in the blue economy sitting in cabinet. That is the first critical move. We need ownership. It is so important. Martinique can help us in so many ways, from boat building to transfer of technology, transfer of skills. They live a nautical life. We don't. So it's a very powerful observation, and it's very, very important that we try to explore and develop an alliance with Martinique.
Okay, thank you. Now we just have a few more minutes. I think we just have less than 10 minutes, but I'm going to play a little bit of the devil's advocate here, because I'm hearing you. I'm hearing the need for greater investment. I'm hearing the need for a greater champion. I'm hearing the need for a number of structures and frameworks to be put in place. So now I'm going to sit from this end and say, but when we speak about we don't appreciate the blue economy, I can sit and look at St. Lucia as our example. We have a Department of Fisheries that is funded by the government. We have a Ministry of Agriculture. We have a National Fisheries Policy. We have an Oceans Policy. We have the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States that is doing quite a bit of work on climate change and impacts on coastal areas and marine spatial planning. We have the St. Lucia Development Bank that is supposed to provide investment to areas like fishing. We also have legislation that looks at introduction of hazards and agrochemicals that can harm the marine environment. So someone could sit and say, wait a minute, the investment and the concern for the blue economy must exist because we have invested in all these different agencies and all these different policies. So where's the disconnect? Because there is investment, at least on paper, through the government, but we also have a private enterprise that also seems to be putting some level of investment and within the blue economy or for the protection of the marine resource. So again, what's happening? Yes, Laura. And then I'm going to invite you to be very short because after you, I think maybe just one or two very short questions, and then I'm afraid we have to end.
The problem is the type of investment that we have. When we spoke, I think every single panelist spoke about entrepreneurs and how we should develop. Let me take this thing off. I can't be muzzled. I'm so sorry. Every single panelist talked about developing entrepreneurs, encouraging our young people to be entrepreneurs. Young people do not have money. And you spoke about SLDB, but when you go to a bank, you have to pay back whatever loan or whatever funding that you get. So we're not looking at capitalists or venture capitalists. We're looking for angel investors, people who have monies that they can give back because there is buy-in. They're thinking of the bigger picture. We're talking about governments. Why aren't we investing in the blue ocean economy as we're doing with tourism or any of those sexified, and I say sexified in inverted commas, industries? These are the things that we have to look at. And this is why entities such as GEF, Global Environment Facility, is so important. But even then, you know, the process is protracted. You have to be persevering. You have to. There is so much that is required. So it's not just about developing the entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to have money or you need to have access to money. So it's the type of investment that's available. We need more angel investments or more entities such as Jeff.
Thank you very much. Somebody, 20 seconds. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'll invite all the panelists and I'm asking you, please, we have 7 minutes. I'm going to give you just over 30 seconds, just some final words. So Jade is going to start, yes?
Okay, so in terms of on your last question, the reasons for this challenge is not being overcome. One thing a farmer told me once is, as long as there's money in it, I'm there. So one thing I'd recommend is, it's not just about government looking for investment or just the angel investors. I know that would be ideal, but we're in a situation where that doesn't happen. So two things. One, in terms of clarifying your ideas and making sure that the idea that you're looking at is actually viable. And another thing is, how do you start to get the correct stakeholders into the right room? So as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not saying anything wrong about government, but the last person I'd go to was government for anything. All right? I don't think that they would provide me with what's necessary to actually make my business run. The first person I'd go to are my users and some of the key stakeholders. And if you could create a team around that, then the people paying you will be the first ones in the room once your solution is good. So if you can create an idea around that, then that will show that your project and your idea has value behind it, which will then help with what's next.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to go to Brent from South Louis Community College. Any 30-second thoughts? And Vetta did ask to confirm the different areas that the Innovative Lab will address, but I think that could be done later. Just any 30 seconds?
Asking a lecturer to just speak for 30 seconds is asking a lot. Eh? All right. Basically, I'm saying that we need to commit more resources to different things. Labs, especially the ones at, like the one we're doing at Theophil Lewis, which has 4 divisions, mainly technology, a food innovation lab, and an environmental sciences lab. Initiatives like this will create new products, new ways of protecting the oceans, being able to harness more things from the oceans. Research shows us that, you know, a lot of countries are benefiting and we're being left behind. New Zealand now has a patent on Omega XL, which comes from, I think it's mussels, you will correct me if I'm wrong. Green mussels, yes. And we have a lot of similar products here, but we just not leveraging what we have. We need to do that. We need to start pouring money into doing our research and so forth. Food security is a major issue, and I think we need to go back to the oceans, not only for more food, but better nutrition, and we know how nutritious fish is. So I think my 2 cents is that we need to educate the students, we need to have more government initiatives, and we just need to put more resources into the blue economy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Brent, next door.
Religious namesake is quoted as saying, the fundamental cure for poverty is not money but knowledge. I want to make a case for utilizing knowledge, for commercializing it, for harnessing it. Because we have some really good entrepreneurs, we have persons with tremendous potential. I would like to see resources and support directed to them. Create a support mechanism that can help us accelerate that process of taking an idea to a product or to a service, and have a conversation with the financial institutions, the banks, the credit unions, the individuals, so that we can run the numbers and create an environment where we can make it attractive and feasible, readily accessible for persons to invest into these industries. We need the entrepreneurs, we need the resources, the markets are there, the potential is there. Let's put the pieces together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask Vetta, are you with us? Just 30 seconds, any last few words or thoughts?
Yeah, sure. These are big scale ideas. These are big thinking ideas, and big issues as well that we're also trying to solve when it comes to climate, when we're trying to solve about our social impact in communities, and the ocean itself by its very nature is massive. So there's opportunities in there for all of us. And the mere fact that this is so huge, in a way, I think this is what in some ways intimidates people from all levels, from from very grassroots to even policymakers. But in so doing, I cannot stress enough the importance of collaboration and looking to complement each other, often more so than we compete with each other. And I also thought one of the things I didn't hear enough of was providing opportunities and pathways for our diaspora to get involved in this blue economy, to invest in our blue economy, and to really be very intentional about the type of funding and support that we want to get in this region and the type of investors we want. What does that look like for us? I think very serious conversations need to be had so we attract the really good money. One of the things I didn't think came across sufficient as well is that the blue economy is a whole scope of various sectors and opportunities, and we really need to also have conversation around what is restorative, what's really going to help us as a people, what's really going to help build back our coastal heritage, our marine environment. Where are we going to not only conserve, but where are we going to start to reinvest and make sure that we don't take out too much by its very nature? That is what the blue economy is. And yes, we want to make money, but how can we do this in a way and with sectors that can really support a fair blue economy? And also to the young people who are listening, these are big opportunities. We have opportunities for engineers and technicians and all sorts of things, but there's also opportunities for you right now. And I think one of the big take-home points I would like to share with you, and I'm hoping you would have seen too, is the need for advocacy in creating a very restorative and equitable blue economy, and the need to really engage community and to communicate in this area. So for those of the young folks who are listening who have also these artistic skills and real gifts for communication through media or art, through advocacy, you can support so many of the businesses that are here today. Reach out, set up your own businesses to support these initiatives. As you can see, there's a lot of a groundswell of movement that's happening. And as young people, the next 15 years too are going to be yours for the taking. And the work that we're doing now is just simply laying a path that will make it easier for you to benefit. And so I think it's really a duty upon all of us, including the youngsters who are listening, to share in this fight for creating a bluer future, as I like to say, for the Caribbean, but also making sure that this is going to have the relevant impact in our communities, where we see, our friends, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles having a better and more prosperous life.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Vetta. So, I'd like to apologize to Laura and Cuthbert, but our alarm has gone off. I think that we could have done maybe for another hour. There's quite a lot. So I also want to apologize to those of us, those on Zoom and on YouTube, those who had submitted questions. Our time is gone. So thank you very much. And I'm going to hand you over now to Mrs. Natalie Jolie Fanners to say a few words of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Felix. So in everything we must give thanks, and I just want to do that officially on behalf of the chairperson and members of the Arthur Lewis College Nobel Laureate Committee. Whoops. Okay, maybe I should just hold the mic. So firstly, let me express some profound thanks, gratitude to our panelists, without whom this discussion would not have been possible, and we see how long it would have gone on if we were able to. Mr. Cuthbert Didier, maritime expert, thank you so much. Mr. Branson Catherine, our very own from the college. Mr. Jade Hutchinson, Ms. Vetta Wade, thank you so much for joining us from Montserrat. We love that we can have our Caribbean partners join us. Ms. Laura Japier, from the village of Laborie, very inspiring, along with your partner. And of course, Mr. Brent Theophil, representing ICA, but again, Dominique from Dominica. So we love that we have our regional partners here again. Thank you so much. Please give them a round of applause for their excellent presentations. And I'm sure they will resonate with us because they have really stimulated our thinking about the vast possibilities in the area of the blue economy. So gratitude. Let me also take the opportunity to place on record our gratitude to Dame Paulette Louisy and the National Nobel Laureate Committee for their invaluable and consistent support. We are happy that even in this period that we are able to continue with our activities. We also need to sincerely say thank you to the National Television Network, whose technicians have been reliable partners over the years, and by extension we want to thank the rest of the St. Lucian media who also helped to promote the Nobel Laureate Festival activities. And I would really like to put on record as well our thanks to the management and staff of the Arthur Lewis Community College, who continually provide much appreciated assistance to the College Nobel Laureate Committee to execute our activities. And this evening, I would like to single out our lecturer and who served as moderator, Dr. Marie-Louise Felix. Please give her a round of applause. Along with NTN to the back is also our team from the Education Technology Unit who facilitated the Zoom. So thank you very much to our team at the back. We also have our staff members who turned from lecturers to decor experts. So we want to thank them for putting the house in order this evening and for making us, look top notch. And also our hardworking staff of the Operations and Maintenance Department that just provide support to us in getting everything done. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to all those who joined us on our various platforms for your contributions and for participating in this activity. We look forward to having you present at our other activities tomorrow with the Memorial Lecture, the Sir Arthur Lewis Memorial Lecture, as well as on Friday, we will have the wreath-laying ceremony, and we close off with something very new. We will be home to the collection, the personal library collection of Sir Derek Walcott, and we will be unveiling the Derek Walcott Library. So go to our pages and find out about our other activities and keep celebrating excellence. I thank you.
Well, according to the Center for the Blue Economy, it is the overall contribution of the oceans to economies, the need to address the environmental and ecological sustainability of the oceans, and the ocean economy as a growth opportunity for both developed and developing countries. So, what does this mean exactly? Renewable energy, where sustainable practices can have a vital impact on socio-economic development. Fisheries, that already contribute over $270 billion annually to the global GDP. Maritime transport, where over 80% of goods traded pass through this channel, and it's expected to double by 2030 and quadruple by 2050. Waste management, because 80% litter comes from land-based sources, and blue economy best practices would help the ocean recover. Climate change, the ocean acts as a major carbon sink and also produces 50% of the oxygen we breathe. Best practices would help mitigate the adverse effects of global warming. And tourism. Coastal towns are a dream destination for many and would bring economic growth and development. Small developing towns and islands bring an estimated 41 million visitors a year. The bottom line is, the blue economy supports the growth of the maritime sector in a sustainable way.